If you're struggling with your vitality, energy, mood, focus, or sleep, this podcast is for you. Your host, Dr. Ann Sung, ER doctor and aerospace flight surgeon, will help you reach for the stars and remove the barriers or blockades that have been holding you back from living your best life. If you've been challenged by your health, relationships, or productivity, then it's time for a breakthrough. So here's your host, Dr. Ann Sung.
Hello, welcome to It's Not Rocket Science Show. I am your host, Dr. Ann Sung. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to have the courage to face the fear, the stress, and the worry that you've had for a long time and that you've been avoiding. How do you have the courage to face it head on and come up with a solution? We'll talk about how you can change your state, change your story and your limiting beliefs, and then come up with a strategy to solve whatever you're worrying about. And let's go ahead and dive in, because a lot of times, we have these financial stressors, perhaps, or health stressors, maybe emotional stressors, professional stressors. The common defense mechanism is that, okay, I just don't want to think about it. Or, we start worrying, and then we just drop it because our defense mechanism is a lot of times avoidance. And I heard this great quote from a Mind Valley course that was actually on the emotional intelligence of money. But, because we stress about money all the time. And it stated that the stress and worry is actually the halfway house to your solution. So I'll repeat that again. Stress and worry is actually the halfway house to your solution. And that struck me greatly because I thought about that. I was like, oh, you're right. We're already halfway there. You start thinking about it, you start thinking about the situation, you stress about it, worry about it, but we don't go all the way through to play that scenario out to come up with a solution. And this goes into, it is very similar to Tim Ferriss, he calls fear setting. And essentially is you think about all of the worst case scenarios that could ever happen with this case, and then you come up with a solution against it. And I heard from the course that Richard Branson actually does that as well. That's how he's so successful in his companies, but he doesn't seem worried, apparently. So I want to share with you two of my fears and how I went around to change my state, change my story, limiting beliefs, and how I came up with a strategy. And because a lot of times, we talk about it's a halfway house the solution. The most common next defense mechanism is, okay, I'm just going to go dive into strategy, to solution. What can I actually do to solve this problem? That's very, very common. So actually, what we need to do is we need to first change our limiting beliefs, our identity, what we think about that situation. And in order to change our story, our limiting belief about that situation, we actually need to change our state, our physiology. We change our state with physiology. So I'll tell you like some of the two recent items, actually, two of my biggest fear and worry, and how I went about to actually progressing through changing state, story, and strategy. Number one was that my first real estate investment for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit in Vegas, two tenants I inherited, they stopped paying rent. And essentially I had to go through a month of eviction process. Thankfully that, my property management company helped me a lot. They organized everything. They organized the lawyer. They essentially set all the notices for me, though the rent wasn't coming in. So that was a financial stressor for me. And I just kept worrying. And I essentially I still had 2 other tenants. So thankfully I didn't really have to front that much money, but I was under the impression that I would be successful already, being cash flowing already when I made this purchase. And I wasn't cash flowing. I was just putting in a little money just so that I can pay the mortgage, pay the insurance. And I was stressing and worrying about it, like what would happen? I need to make money. How long would I have to pay for this? It's even went so far to, oh, well, I am a failure because I failed at this investment. And I'm evicting two people already a few months, like 6 months after I purchased, less than 6 months after I purchased the property. So that was my story. Like, I don't have enough time to work. I have to front money. I shouldn't have to front money, etc. And therefore, I am a failure. And so, my second worry that had been stressing me out, I have not had a lot of time to work. I had been in Russia to work as a flight surgeon to assist with training. And so I was out of the country for many months. And before that, I was training, doing flight surgeon training at NASA. So I haven't had time to work in the ICU or the ER as much to keep up my skills. So I'm when I came back, I had a shift that was offered to me, and I took it. And because usually, whenever I feel fear, that's when I dive in and I just do it. But I took the shift. But before that, I was worried, super worried. I was like, well, I don't have enough experience. I haven't worked for so long. And I'm not going to be fast enough in the ER. I'm not going to be able to see so many patients, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to let other people down. Those were my fears. And it just day after day, as the shift started getting closer, I just kept worrying, worrying, but didn't do anything about it. And then finally, closer to end of the new year, I went through a Tony Robbins Breakthrough Challenge. It was a free 5 day Facebook event, 3 hours a day, and essentially he reignited the change your state, change your story, and then you come up with a strategy solution. So that's what I did. And I learned all of those skills, back at Unleash the Power Within, back at Date with Destiny. And I knew those things, but it's different when you actually go back and start listening to those things again. And then you remember and you actually change your physiology, then you can change. If you just sit there and think about it, nothing is going to change. It's not going to change how you feel and your identity and your fears. So, what I mean is that, number one thing, before you even come up with the solution, you change your state. You're either in an energetic, hopeful, excited state, or I was in a fearful, worrying, just feeling not enough type of state again. Something I always dealing with, with imposter syndrome, et cetera, et cetera. So now I recognize it. And for me, how I change my state is either I take a cold shower, or and I dance in the cold shower, really cold shower, and you're like dancing and you're moving. And that gets me in state change in just 2 minutes. I would jump on the trampoline, listen to music to get me into a different state. The next thing I would do is I would do the priming exercise. You can Google it. If you just type in Tony Robbins priming, I believe it's probably 15 minutes or less. And it really gets you it gets you to think about the things that you are grateful for, and even things that you have, think about in the past, the obstacles that you have overcome, the challenges you have overcome, a goal that you have achieved that took you a long time, and think about the excitement, think about everything that you had to go through in order to achieve it. Think about those qualities that you had, the action steps that you took to achieve that really hard goal or a challenge that you overcame. And or any sort of meditation, you don't have to do the priming, but any sort of meditation that gets you to think about that will get you to be in that state. So I want to share with you what I did. And so I did all of those exercises. Before that, I had a story. What you want to do is get a pen and notepad, and write down your limiting belief or your old story. So my old story with the real estate is that I do not have enough money. I don't have time to make more money. I am a failure. I don't know how long it's going to take them to get evicted. I'm not going to find a tenant, etc. All the tenants I find later on might be all bad. How am I going to screen them? This is long distance investing, etc., etc. And then my old story limiting belief with the ER is I don't have enough time to work enough to gain the experience, and that everybody else has more experience than I do because they've worked in the ER and ICU more frequently than I have, and I just work 2 to 4 times a month. So therefore, I am going to be incompetent. I am not going to be as fast, and I don't have enough knowledge compared to other people. That was my limiting story. It sounds terrible. Like you would never speak like that to your friends, right? Like, but we don't show ourselves enough self-love to speak to ourselves kindly with compassion. So after I changed my state, I wrote down, this is the piece of paper that I actually wrote down that day, that I changed my story to the new story. I have the creativity, the opportunities, and the resources to make anything happen. And I will use all the help to help innovate fun and creative ways in order to create the most amazing experiences with loved ones as well. Because, I went back to think about my why. Why am I doing everything I am doing? It's really to achieve the 5 freedoms that I've talked about before: financial, emotional, location, time, etc. And then so that I can spend time with my loved ones, with whoever I want, however long I want, and go wherever we want. That's really the end goal, to have joy and happiness. And I forget about that. So, and I also told myself that I have the ability to focus on the long term goal and do every step with that long term goal in mind. And I have overcame all types of challenges. I have the intelligence, I have the emotional stability, I have the discipline to learn whatever I need to learn, to absorb whatever I need to absorb in order to be a successful real estate investor, in order to be a successful ER and ICU doc. And I have all the support around me to draw from. Like, I have a whole real estate team I can utilize for property management team, contractor team. I have a business and physician coach. I mean, I have my friends who are supportive, my husband who's supportive. I have all these resources I can draw from. And I am powerful enough. I am disciplined enough. I'm intelligent enough. I already have everything I need right now to be happy in this life. And everything else is just, icing on top. And everything I need is within me now. And after I did that exercise, I just felt so everything would change. I was very hopeful. I was able to come up with strategies to actually, and then the last step is strategy. I was able to come up with strategies to kind of deal with these fears. So stress and worry is just a halfway house. Then you change your state, change your story. Now you come up with a solution. So what I told myself for real estate, I actually went out and calculated out, okay, so what if I don't get a tenant for the next 6 months because I still have to trash the house? They left a lot of things to get tenants, renovate, and then get tenants. So if I don't get tenants for the next 6 months, how much money would I have to front? And turned out it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. And I was like, oh, okay, I have that money. Actually, it's not that bad. If that is the worst case scenario, then that's fine. And really, the roadblock is myself, because it's time. I found out that it takes time for me to get people to go there to give me estimates, and I have to approve the estimates, and I'm learning through experience. And I was also out of the country at the time, so my learning that I am the roadblock to this timeline was really key for me. So that really put my worries and fears at bay. And I said, I'm going to read up on rehab costs and like learn details about rehab. I'm going to utilize my general contractor's expertise, property management expertise, and really the financial stress after I calculated out total, the worst case, how much I have to fund. It was like that, like my worries and stress went away because I already have a solution. Because the next solution, which goes along with my next fear, is my fear of not remembering enough medical knowledge or fast enough. And I told myself that I have learned so much, through med school, through residency, through multiple fellowships, and I've acquired new knowledge all the time, everywhere. And I can do this again. And this is not new knowledge. This is just refreshing old knowledge. And the best way to really get back into the game is to work more shifts. So I said, I'm going to make sure I sign up for 2 to 4 shifts at least a month. And every single day, I'm going to pick a topic that's relevant in emergency medicine, say like the stroke protocol or the what they call the stroke scale, NIH scale. I'm going to review it. I'm actually going to do it. You have to stand up and actually do it and say it, because that's the best way to learn. And every day I'm going to review the algorithm. And I actually reached out to my old fellowship at Barnes Jewish Hospital, and I got the online resources that they have for all of their lectures, all of their protocols in the ICU. And I'm going to I have been reviewing their protocols and kind of refreshing my memory and learning. And so after doing that, I've already worked a few shifts and I've already started reviewing some of the protocols. And my stress and worry before the shift just went down drastically. The shift went fine. The next shift also went fine. Understandably, I was not as efficient or fast because I was still trying to get used to the system, though I got more and more comfortable. And I knew that before going into the shift, I told myself I was going to give my presence, I was going to give them my time to each patient and listen to them and care for them for as much as I can. And if I had done that, then that would have been a worthwhile shift. I would have met my intentions for the shift because it's all about the patients, really. And it's not about rushing through the medicine. It's not about seeing the next one, the next one, the next one, but doing it just 50%. So just those two stories are my fear setting story, my stress and worry for the past, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months probably. And I just wish to share that with you. If you have something that you're worried about, like a presentation or something in a job, something you fear that you're not doing enough, or something with your family, perhaps, or something financial that you're not making enough, that you don't have time to make enough, just don't go to solution first. Number one thing, get into a good physiology, dance, cold shower, meditate, think about all the things that you have ever accomplished, celebrate those moments, think about the things you're grateful for, then write down your limiting beliefs, write down your new identity and your new belief after you've changed your state. And then you think about those stressful things and then you come up with a solution. And sometimes when you're meditating or when you're kind of visualizing, you come up with a solution yourself, or you can sleep on it and the next day the solution will come to you. So I really want to thank you for your time and attention today. I hope this was really helpful. I'm going to send the links in the show notes. And please go to itsnotrocketscienceshow.com. And it would be really helpful also if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Google or Spotify, so that I know how to up-level this podcast for you. And for those of you watching on video, and you'll notice that I am actually standing up for this podcast, just to note that, this is because this changes my state and gives me more energy to speak to you guys. So this is just another tidbit. When you want to change your state, just stand up and move. So thank you. And remember, everything we need is already within us now. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review in iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a private VIP day for a health and life makeover with Dr. Ann Sung herself. Then be sure to head on over to itsnotrocketscienceshow.com and pick up your free gift from Dr. Sung. Then join us on the next episode.